marked. 35 seconds to entry interface.
Gentlemen, it's been a privilege flying with you.
Stereotyping Jews is terrible.
Same ways. So on the screen now we have a NASA training session. This is usually done in the neutral buoyancy lab, and this is when they practice in the pool with scuba divers nearby. So I want to point out first that there's these cameras and lights that we can see them often holding. In a minute I'll show you this in what they call an actual spacewalk, but we'll see that it's really just taking place probably in a pool. Now it is my belief that this is an actual real practice for when they do spacewalks.
You are technically correct. The best kind of correct.
Because I don't think that they're actually in space.
Huh? But what?
They're either in a pool or in a studio with wires. Of course they do both. If they only did one way of tricking you, if you ever found out, they'd be done. But by using different methods, you can never really pinpoint one way, and so that's how they continue to trick us.
Thank God those NASA scientists got them fancy math degrees that allowed them to come up with 2 ways to fake weightlessness. Otherwise, it would just be obvious.
Holy cow, it's number 2.
If you have seen the movie Interstellar or Gravity, then you know that it's very easy to take out wires and harnesses. And if you've seen the show The Big Bang, there's a few clips where they're actually on the ISS and they're actually using stools.
3! Pick number 3, my lord!
Many can't even entertain that thought. They have been built up with ego that they are so smart it's not possible they could be fooled ever.
Hey, Bob, you remember the other day you were asking me what the definition of irony was, and I said, ah!
Well, when you realize that you can see it at night, when you can't verify from the ISS that it can see you, and you can see the ground when the ISS passes during the day, but you can't see it from the ground.
I believe Jainism is arguing that the ISS live feed does not correlate with its physical location, and that this has something to do with day and night for some reason. Of course, the statement is completely unsubstantiated, but that's not going to stop 20,000 plus people from believing that this is evidence that the ISS is fake. What it is shameful.
And the fact that there's no 24/7 camera feed from the ISS showing the Earth because it does not exist and has never existed. And for those people who will just drop a link in the comment section to Space Videos or another channel that claims to show the ISS in live 24/7 viewing, please follow that link and check for yourself. There is no 24/7 camera. It's never existed now, nor has it existed in the 17 years that the tin can of science has been in perpetual orbit of the Earth.
What I assume Jainism is referring to are the gray screens that appear on the live feed during a loss of signal or when the camera is not operating. Aside from these known interruptions, there is a live feed from the ISS that plays 24/7. And yes, I did follow it to its source.
First off, just remember that they always 100% of the time use scuba divers in practice. Well, this isn't logical at all. Since the astronauts will not have any assistance in space if their tethers get caught or they have one of the cables hooked around something that if you yanked or pulled could cause a potential problem, then it would only make sense that if in the few final rounds of practice that they did it without the aid of several scuba divers per astronaut. But nope, as you can see, they are carried around and constantly assisted by the scuba team.
The Neutral Buoyancy Lab provides the best analog on Earth that would allow astronauts to practice the procedures they would do in space. The astronauts practice the meticulously detailed procedures they will be tasked with while in space. I'm sorry to inform you that the movie Armageddon did not accurately represent NASA training procedures. If you're wondering why there are scuba divers in the pool,
once weighted properly, the astronauts hover in the water as if floating in the weightlessness of space. Since fins don't work in space, the astronauts don't get to wear them here. They must be moved from task to task by the divers.
Also, since space will be dark, why wouldn't they practice in the pool with the lights off? Well, the obvious answer is because then it would look just like space, and they don't want you seeing that.
this light comment is just Jainism being ignorant. During the day, the ISS has a light source, the sun. If they have to go out during the night, the spacesuits have lights on them. It's like he's not even trying.
can't believe it. This is simply embarrassing.
And so the other day, Antonio Subirats put out a video where he saw a scuba diver in space.
And here's one of them, videoing this astronaut. You can see him in the reflection there. Can you see him? There he is, all dressed in black. Can you see now? Oh, if only the reflection was a bit better. Oh, there you go. Now can you see him? Can you see the shadow trooper? It's not really, it's a scuba diver.
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
Are you fucking serious? This is the proof that scuba divers are in space? Where is fucking fins? Why is the cameraman tethered? Where is his tank? Where are the bubbles? Are you telling me NASA bothered to put a reflection of the Earth on the helmet visor, but forgot to remove the scuba diver first? This is your level of evidence?
Keep firing, assholes!
But clearly you can see that when we watch here, we can see the camera or light being held by the scuba diver.
Wrong.
And you can even see his legs down to his flippers.
Wrong.
Which are slightly hidden. But if you look a little bit to the right, you'll see what looks like another set of flippers flapping away.
Wrong.
So yeah, a great find by Antonio.
Wrong.
Because of course they edit this out, and it would be a rare find to find such a mistake.
Wrong.
But since during spacewalks, they don't usually show the Earth.
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong.
It's never live. They have from 10 seconds to even more than a day to edit out anything that might give away the trick. So here they missed.
You're wrong.
Of course, all the evidence you need is easily found. For example, you don't need this big curved screen and big ball with a track going around it unless you are faking the moon landings. You don't need this guy painting every intricate detail of the moon unless you're faking the moon landings.
These images are from the Lunar Orbit and Letdown Approach Simulator, or LOLA for short, that NASA built in the 50s so astronauts could practice approaching the lunar surface. Obviously these murals were not used to fake the moon landings, as they look very different from the actual moon landing footage.
Many people see a picture of the shuttle like this and argue that it could not possibly be fake. Look how real it is. It's not possible. Well, the image you are looking at now is in fact very fake. It is a miniature built by a company helping those fake the world for 40 plus years. They are called Wonderworks. The top of their site says, Gateway to the Stars of Stage, Screen, NASA, and Private Aerospace for 40 plus years. So, as we take a look at their webpage, you can see many facets of their operation. You can also see many images that many people would put their reputation on. This is definitely a floating astronaut taking a picture of the Earth from space out a window, when in actuality, it's just a set.
Jaronism goes on for, I shit you not, 7 minutes looking at pictures on the Wonderworks website. His argument here boils down to, since a model can be built of the space shuttle or the ISS, obviously they are fake, and he found the people that faked it. Using this logic, Jaronism must also believe that trains, the Wienermobile, red barns, and the Eiffel Tower are also fake because Wonderworks has built models of them.
And getting back to the pool, we can see here that even when we look through the camera, you can tell that the camera is almost recording an image that eliminates the idea of it being in water. You can see from this camera that you can't even see the bubbles that are happening above the astronaut. They kind of disappear. Is that something to do with the camera? I'm not sure. I wouldn't know, but it certainly is interesting.
And so we provide oxygen to the astronauts, main portion of the spacesuit. It gets recirculated. The astronauts, like everybody on the ground, breathes out carbon dioxide. It gets back into the plis. What the plis does is it scrubs the CO2 out of the oxygen and recirculates it into the suit. So that's one of the primary functions of the plis.
A spacesuit does not exhale like scuba gear does. CO2 is contained in the suit or transferred down the umbilical. Perhaps if Jeranism did some research into how a spacesuit actually functions, he wouldn't have all these dumbass questions about them.
Earlier I mentioned about why they don't record in pitch black. Well, because if they did, it might look something like this. And this is too much for them to show, as it clearly shows almost the identical thing as a spacewalk. This is what we see when they're in space.
If Jeranism thinks these two videos look the same, he needs to get his eyes checked. It's scary to me that a vast majority of Jeranism's subscribers rely on him for their science education.
Now, you can also take a look here at somebody supposedly in space who is making bubbles, which is basically all the science that's been done in the 17 years that they've been on the ISS. Now, of course, you can take your pick of where you want to see this kind of science taking place, on the $150 billion ISS or on a $4,000 parabolic flight. Yes, you can do exactly what he's doing here on a parabolic flight for $4,000.
Again, Jeranism's cataracts are impeding his ability to distinguish two very different zero-G water bubbles. I should also note there are almost 2,000 spin-off technologies directly attributed to NASA and space travel. Make sure to thank NASA the next time you use a cordless drill or sit on a memory foam chair.
We'll now take a look at a little video that was done that highlighted two filmmakers who went deep into the Kazakhstan desert at the Baikonur Cosmodrome. And what we see when we open these doors is the remnants of a long-lost Soviet space headquarters, as there are still two large shuttles that were never put into use. But this is what happens when you realize that space travel is impossible, and there's no use continuing on with this nonsense. So what do? Well, they condense their space program into a very simple-to-manage trickery, which all takes place around the Soyuz capsules. Soyuzes take you to the ISS and back, and that's all they need to fake. No use for all of this equipment. You'd think that stuff would still be of use, right? Well, not when space is fake.
If Jeranism would have done a little more research, he would have known that these Soviet shuttles were part of a program that successfully launched an orbiter in 1988. However, Boris Yeltsin canceled the program in 1993 due to the little inconvenience of the Soviet economy crashing. I wonder why the Soviets sent 15 lunar orbiters into space during the 60s and 70s, but it would take till 1993 to discover that space was fake. Weird how that works.